This podcast encourages and empowers you to create your own unique real story, develop your own unique real statement, and discover your own unique real self. The power is yours. Good night, Chris Bates. How are you doing on this wonderful, beautiful night?
I am doing fantastic, sir.
It's a great pleasure to connect with you, Chris. What part of the world are you in right now?
I'm in Indiana.
All right. And which of your talents is responsible for us connecting at this specific time in history?
So it is my cybersecurity expertise that is the reason for us connecting.
Tell me more, please.
I have a master's degree in cybersecurity, and I've been working in the blockchain and distributed computing space for a while, as well as I just am about to start a doctorate in cybersecurity and infrastructure assurance or information assurance.
Wow. Now, within the tech space, you're definitely someone that's required, yeah?
Yeah, definitely. If you're trying to build something tech-wise, you definitely need a cybersecurity guy on your team.
So who did you learn the skill of what's necessary to be so studious?
It's more so that's just the way I've been my entire life. That as far as just trying to learn the most relevant thing tech-wise and try to stay ahead of the curve.
I think there's a creativity bug in there as well, though, because I saw that there was something that you did where you created digital algorithms that generated music with human interaction. Explain that, please.
So that's one of the things that I did coding earlier was create generative music, and some of this stuff was in the context of games. So it would be a matter of depending on the level of how much the song was written. Some of the algorithms would write songs from completely where it's taking the user input and using sounds that are already preloaded to make a combination of outputs that make a song, but every user is obviously going to be doing different things, so every song ends up being different. But then in the context of games, you can't make it so unpredictable if there's a storyline, so you have to kind of limit the level of creation that goes into that. So it's a combination of, you have to understand how music works, but you also have to understand how code works to get that to cross over. So it was a good interplay to understand how to make useful code, but also how to take it to I don't know if you're familiar, but the Turing test to tell if an algorithm is able to trick a person, if they're human, used to be based on deception, and now they're switching it to if something's able to create. Well, it's not completely switched, but doing those algorithms was at a time where that type of switch wasn't even in the in the mainstream thought of
tricking the system. Yeah.
Well, it's more so maybe the whole reason that there's a narrative that people should fear AI is because since we've been building them the whole time, the litmus test has been if it can lie, how well the AI can lie. So maybe that was the wrong thing to focus on, and that's kind of, I've been of that mind the entire time, but it's great to finally see the rest of the computer science space catching up and the AI space.
Well,
and I think a lot of that has to do with getting it out of military industrial.
Now, here's what's happening, amazing audience. This guy is so intelligent that he's actually like, there are people that speak like 12 languages and they need to translate one of the languages so that we can understand. So then they're wondering if the word is the correct word. That's what's going on with you right now, just trying to explain that. And then you have only 12 minutes.
Yeah.
Well, I do have a question. Is it possible then, like there's one guy in Trinidad, he created a platform where he puts on these neurological sensors, right? These things on your head, and then when you're speaking, it paints like a graphical interface, like something that like Windows Media Player would do long ago, the visualizations.
Yes.
Yeah, is it possible to take the conversations that I've had, the thousands of conversations, and create something that then produces a unique song based on the answers or the tones of the people that were on the podcast?
Oh, absolutely. Depending on how you filter the information, whether it's based on words, information, you could analyze the podcast in so many different ways. One of the sonification of data is one of the things that we actually did in my first master's, and it's really interesting because it allows you to turn large sets of data into something that makes sonic sense. And if you're talking about 1,000 podcasts, clearly one person wouldn't be able to listen to it in the course of 3 minutes. However, if you turn the data, or if you filtered it in a certain way and analyzed it, you could filter it down and make it make sense as to what would represent the gestalt of your podcast represents it. But obviously, it wouldn't just be it wouldn't just be a song. It would have to have context, but the song should be able to give itself but this is why you can't just be a coder and do that. You have to also be able to be a musician, understand music theory.
Yeah.
So that's a crazy crossover of talents to be able to do those types of things and do them well. I'm not going to claim to be the best at it, but it's definitely a crazy place to be.
It excites me because I think we've been back and forth of creating a product that would resonate with our listeners as well as those who were on the podcast, and it would just be really cool to have your signature of what your podcast looks like or sounds like. So we've did things or thought about things like t-shirts with your name, and that's cool, but just to identify the uniqueness and just showcase uniqueness. I love the idea of your episode being able to be filtered into a song, and then it's yours, and then it's unique to you but what would happen if there are like similarities, right? Now we could then connect others who have the similar song and see what that looks like and what happens there.
Absolutely. And this is where, breaking down data into different sets to see how it looks in different ways allows you to make references that you didn't see before. So as you're saying, sometimes people may use different words or different dialects or different tones or whatever whatever the metric may be to filter things out, that may create connections that you wouldn't have necessarily seen before, and then find out that those connections are valid. This is why it's amazing to be able to take something and turn it into something else for the sake of looking at it from a different angle, which is, it's basically why people don't understand Pablo Picasso and they look at it and they say, oh, this is ugly painting, but he's trying to show things from a different angle, or show the same physical space from a completely different set of viewpoints. And these are things that people need to have, whether it's on technology or podcasts or how to express unique identity, and you're not just buying it off a shelf. So I love that you're thinking about things in that manner.
Yeah. I appreciate that. Definitely, let's expand on that conversation. When I was in Indianapolis, oh my gosh. So at that place, right, Indiana, I had 33 conversations in one day. I started at 9 a.m., just about, and went to like 7 p.m. Like there's a great guy there. There's a great team actually, and they put together an entire team of all sorts of individuals. I'm talking about car racers. What's the famous street in Indiana? The racing strip street, gasoline alley. Yeah. There were people from there. It was just amazing, my friend, and like I resonate with Indiana tremendously because of that. There seems to be a connectivity, a type of community that's boiling up, especially in the tech space.
Yeah. Indiana's actually has a really growing tech space. They've done a really good job at taking the areas that have fallen apart and building them up. And what that's done is there's a lot of good schools in Indiana, and before the people who would graduate would end up leaving the state and go work elsewhere. But now they're building it up enough that people are actually staying here to work.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited for what's happening there. Even the nonprofit space, yeah, it's really intriguing what's going on there and getting to be there. All right, my friend, here's what. Let's switch gears. We're having a ton of fun. I just blew through my first and second segment, but I want to ask you this question, yeah? So let's switch gears. Let me now invite you into my time machine that is surrounded with beautiful, warm, blue Caribbean water. Chris, what is your earliest childhood memory?
So I thought about this. I saw the question, and my first memory is a car accident. But it turns out I was actually a baby, and the only reason I know about it is because I asked my dad if he remembered that car accident, and he said there's no reason I should actually remember it because I was a baby. So, and the only reason obviously I was there, but. It's a super random memory, but it's obviously it wasn't a bad car accident. The car just got rear-ended, but I guess I must have been in the back seat in the baby seat or something, just knowing that something wasn't right, and that's like the first thing I remember as a clear. It's not like a super clear memory, but I remembered it and remembered it enough to bring it up.
Why do you think it's so clear? Why do you think that specific memory? Oh, let's do this then. All right. How do you see that memory connecting to who you are today?
I think it's not that it made me feel invincible or anything, but I think it may be if you're like a baby and you already get to the point where you experience something that makes you assess your own mortality, I think that makes you a lot more aware than somebody who's not made aware of their mortality. And a lot of people feel like they're invincible to their 19, 20. But it's not, again, it's not that it made me feel invincible, but rather in understanding the sensitivity of one's own mortality, it makes it a lot easier to not put things off until the next day.
I love that. Yeah. Easier. No procrastination here. We don't have time for it. I love it. Love it. All right, my friend. If we fast forward to when you were 12, what was your favorite song?
It was 100% Bone Thugs and Harmony First of the Month.
All right.
I looked at the year when I was 12 and looked at the songs that were popular then, and it was unquestionable.
Love it. All right, my friend. Well, we've arrived at our destination, but before we get off of this time machine, there's a small declaration form, so it's yes or no. We're going to move pretty quickly here. Are you ready, Chris?
Yes, sir.
Chris, have you chosen someone to pass on your skills to?
Yes.
Are you married?
Technically, we are, what's the word? Civil union.
All right. Do you have children?
No.
Do you believe in God?
I I believe my belief is irrelevant in the existence of a God.
Do you have an inner circle of friends?
I do.
Do you watch TV for more than 3 hours a day?
I listen to podcasts for more than 3 hours a day, probably, but not like TV.
You know, I never considered asking that question. That's a great question, though. Do you? I mean, I am a podcaster,
Well,
right?
'cause you can work with your, it's a lot easier to work with podcasts as background noise and go in and out,
Yeah.
but it's a lot more difficult with TV because I'll watch TV on the treadmill, and that's generally what I try to restrict it to, treadmill and right before bed.
All right. All right. Yeah. Thanks for that. Like, yeah, I should definitely get that question in there. Do you spend more than 8 hours on the screen, phone and computer?
I mean, yeah, since a lot of my job has to do with digital stuff, it ends up being more than 8 hours of screen time every day. Yes.
Chris, if you had to share with us your own unique real statement, a statement that represents who you are, Chris Bates, what would you say that is?
I would say that everyone has a responsibility to be themselves, and in that, to respect everyone else that is not doing harm to others. I think if everyone aim to better themselves and enjoy life, we'd have a lot less conflict.
Definitely the theme of my conversations tonight. Love it. Chris, thank you for being on What is Inspired. Is there anything else you'd like to share, though, Chris, before we leave?
No, I love that you're doing this and connecting with as many people as you find interesting as possible and getting these things out to the world. And thank you for doing this and having me on your show.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I appreciate that. A pleasure I treasure. Chris Bates, thank you for being on What is Inspired by 12-Minute Convos with Angel Jones.
This segment has been brought to you by Amazel Enterprise.